STP.
Mm-hmm.
Have you done any long distance? What's the longest you've ridden?
Olympic tri, so
Okay,
32
20
miles.
32?
Mhm.
Okay. And anybody else who's not ridden over 30 miles? Okay, good.
Oh,
Good. Excellent.
First
Well, welcome to.
Okay.
I'm not participating.
Well, why not?
Oh, because it's a very busy time frame.
And like, listen,
Well, welcome to endurance sports. You have now stepped into the realm of being an endurance athlete, which is very exciting because once you get into that, it kind of sucks you in and you just want a little bit more. If you do it right.
Yes.
And one of the big things is the nutrition and hydration, because you're on your bike and you're training for maybe 4 or 6 hours a week or 10 hours a week for some people, but nutrition and hydration is all those other hours that you're awake as well. So it's important to realize that not only do you have to think about these things while you're on the bike, but you also have to think about these things while you're off the bike. And one of the things that I learned fairly recently, and maybe everybody else knows this and I'm just a little slow learner, if you take your skin and you pull it, if you take your skin on your hand and you pull it up and it stays kind of peaked there, then technically you're a little bit dehydrated. So it should just land right flat, like it should just go away, and you shouldn't have a little peak that stays there. I have a tiny little peak that stays there, but then it goes away pretty quickly. So if you notice that there's a big peak, you've got to drink. And the rule of thumb is 8-ounce glasses of water a day. I tend to think that you just need to sort of drink throughout the day and have that be your baseline. But if you know that the next day you're going to go on a long ride, you may want to start drinking a little bit more 2 days before to start getting your body prepped for that ride so that you don't go into that ride in a dehydrated state. In the same light, the same thing with nutrition. You don't want to go into a ride being already at a deficit. You want to go into a ride, and you don't want to go into a ride overloaded. You want to go into a ride ready for that ride. And so I think that a lot of people tend to think that when you're going out and you're doing endurance riding or like STP, oh my God, the support is amazing. Every 25 miles there's another stop and they've got, these bars and that bar and this drink and a sandwich here and a cookie there and a banana, and pretty soon you're stuffed and you have this, people are like, oh yeah, I gained weight on the STP, and it really, you don't want to go that route either. So you want to pay attention, especially during your training rides, to what you're taking in and what's being put out there. And so how many people on their long rides have gotten to a point where you're like, I can't go any further. I feel like crap. I don't know. All my systems are like, you're done. That hill, I can't imagine going up there. Have you ever gotten to that point?
sure.
Yeah, yeah. And so that point is usually not a training point. It's usually your nutrition or hydration that you haven't kept up with it. And so what I have here is, I have a little sheet that, how many of you have gone out on a ride, felt pretty good for the first hour or 2 or 3, and then felt like you just can't go any further? How many of you think that by riding hours and hours and hours, you're going to actually lose some weight? People go into this, they're like, hey, I'm going to ride, I'm going to lose weight. I've been riding past over 10 years I've been riding, and the past 3 years I've finally taken weight off. And not because of the riding that I'm doing, but because I've decided to eat differently and to pay attention to what I'm eating as I'm on the bike. And I'm really starting to watch people and what they eat and how they feel on the bike. And I'm like, I think I'm listening to my body correctly, and I'm starting to take in the right foods. And a lot of these bars and energy drinks are so full of sugar that they kind of weigh you down and you get to the bonking bit. And so I've started doing nuts or like Larabars, nuts and dates and that sort of stuff in my pocket. A lot of people, if you want to sit on a ball, you can grab a ball behind you.
There's a chair.
Or there's a chair over here, there's a stool here as well. A lot of people have nut allergies, so that makes it a little bit hard, but being creative with fats and those slow burning carbs rather than the sugars that just run right through you is something that's going to help with that process of being able to use that energy and go and not blow up. After a training ride, you go out on a 30 or 40 or 50 mile training ride and you get home and you're like, oh my God, I can't move, right? That shouldn't happen. There are a couple of reasons for that. That could be related to nutrition and hydration. It could be related to the fact that you're going way too hard for what your abilities at that time are. And as people who are new to doing the endurance riding, you have to build your aerobic base. You have to build that ability to go longer and longer. And so Team in Training is really good about dividing rides up into different levels. So there's slightly faster level and there's a medium level and a slow level, I think, pretty much. And so when you notice that, oh my God, I can't talk to the person next to me, drop back to the next level, because that's not going to do you any good to feel like I need to go that hard. I was riding this weekend, I was doing a mountain bike ride with a friend of mine who's usually in fairly good shape. She was getting over a little walking pneumonia, and so I'm riding and I'm just like la 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 la, and I hear her behind me just like and I thought, oh my God, if I don't slow down, she's the type of person that she's going to stay on my wheel regardless of how she's breathing, because she's that kind of person. So it's my job to just take it down a notch and be like, all right, I'm not going to kill her today. We're just going to go kind of slow. And so those are things to be aware of, is your own breathing as you're going. And how many of you knowingly say, okay, tomorrow's a 50-mile ride, I'm going to do a little bit of a carbo load in the night, and then before the ride I'm going to get a good breakfast in maybe an hour or 2 hours before, so that when I get to the ride, that meal is partially digested and I can go. How many of us do that? Do you do that?
Oh, yeah.
Excellent. Good. And how many don't do that? Okay. People are learning. Good. All right. So the basic thing about hydration is really looking at the color of your pee. You want straw-colored pee. If you come back from a ride and you go to the bathroom and turn around, peek in, and it's like just kind of yellow and almost dark yellow, you have not been drinking enough. If you come back from your ride and it's like, hey, that looks like pee on a normal daily basis, then you've been hydrating enough. Weight is also a way to calibrate if you're hydrating enough. If you go, before you go on a ride, step on the scale. When you get back from the ride, step on the scale. You should be about the same weight. You can vary a little bit, but some people come back, they'll be a pound less. I do a weekly weigh-in with some friends, and if I want to cheat the system, I start at home, I ride my bike, I don't drink anything, I come into work, I get on the scale here, I don't tell them that I just rode for an hour, and I'm like a pound lighter. And they have no idea.
That doesn't work week on week, though, does it?
It does. And then I just start guzzling water. I don't do it now.
You can't lose another pound the next week.
No, but I can stay within the range that I want to be in. So I've learned how to cheat the weigh-in system. The thing that I find with consuming the liquids on the bike is that you can get liquid calories and you can do liquid electrolytes. And a lot of people think that the electrolytes, like Nuun, how many people pop a tablet of Nuun in their water bottle, right? There are no calories in that. So you have to account for that. It's okay for like an hour to an hour and a half to have that tablet of Nuun. But once you start getting over the hour and a half into 2 hours, in that first hour, you need to be thinking about that second hour and that third hour. And so you need to have some calories. So if you're going to go with the noon, then you have to be eating something in that first hour so that you have that energy later on. And that's where a lot of people make the mistake is they think, well, I got my electrolytes and I've got my food here and I can drink, but they forget to eat because it's harder to reach around and grab something in your back pocket than it is to grab the bottle. Does that make sense? So figuring out, you know, hey, maybe noon isn't the best thing. And a lot of people like, I can't tolerate noon because it gives me stomach bloat. So you can do lemon juice, honey, and a little pinch of sea salt. That's about what noon is, basically, but it has a few calories in there, and it's all natural. There are all sorts of other Gatorade, lemon juice, honey, and sea salt. I've started using a product by Alan Lim called, and his company is Scratch Labs, and they have a hydration drink that's natural sugars in there, so it doesn't have any maltodextrin, but it has electrolytes and it has a little sugar, so it has some calories in there. It's very gentle on my stomach, and I dilute it fairly much so that I don't feel like I'm drinking syrup, because you don't want that either. And then, and usually I eat my calories more so. So I've got the 1 bottle of water, 1 bottle of this Alan Lim Scratch Lab stuff, and then I've got a pocket full of cashews and dates or prunes or a Larabar or Kind Bar is kind of like the nuts and seeds kind of a thing. I don't do well with the Cliff Bars, so I've just found that out over time. There are so many products out there that the best thing to do is to go somewhere and just buy the little sample things, go to Performance and buy a bunch of sample things and keep a running journal of what you had and how you felt. Now that's kind of the hit or miss way to do it.
The Larabars and Kind Bars are good if you have trouble with food.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And they're coming out with more and more gluten-free stuff. I just bought a Cuisinart. It's coming in tomorrow, so I can make my own. Really easy to make your own sort of Larabar kind of bar. And it's so much cheaper because you just buy bulk almonds and bulk date pieces, throw them in there, and put whatever else you want in there. Trader Joe's has the dehydrated banana, and so you can take those strips and throw them in there, some coconut. It's scrumptious.
What do you think about coconut water?
I think coconut water is fine, but it's not going to be enough for longer rides. Yeah, I think it's just another alternative to, it has some electrolytes, it has some potassium in there, so I think it's a fine alternative. So basically you really want to pay attention to that for 1.5 hours and longer rides. And you want to start sooner with the hydration than later. And the rule of thumb on team rides, I ride for Team Group Health, and if we're on a team ride, when you see one person reach down for their water bottle, reach for your water bottle because it just reminds you. And then maybe you're that next person who's reminding somebody else to reach down for the water bottle. And just take a couple sips. It's not, you don't need to drink. You can just take a couple sips, and if you do that every 10 or 15 minutes, you're going to stay ahead of the game. And especially as it gets warmer and warmer. It's hard when it's cold. They do have the Camelback makes an insulated water bottle, and if it's really cold out, I'll put tea in there. And then in my other bottle, I'll have the Alan Lim stuff. So, and it just gives me a little bit of warmth, so I feel like, this is kind of nice and tasty. I do that in my Camelback when I'm mountain biking. I put warm water in there, and then it's nice and warm on my back. Yeah. Although Sunday it was really warm out, and I was like, oh, this isn't so good. Food. So food, you need to start taking in the food if you're going to be riding 1.5 hours or longer again. Up to 1.5 hours, you really what you've eaten the night before and that morning of, and it's, you know, a pretty easy ride, you shouldn't really need anything. But you want to make sure that if it's longer and as your rides get longer, that you start again, get that food in. Make it and either your basic hard foods, like I said, making your own bars or a Lara bar, Cliff bar, try a Power bar, try a mix of a little bit more protein and fat versus all carbohydrate. So when you're an endurance athlete, you're trying to burn fat for energy. That's your long distance energy source versus the carbohydrates, which is why it's important to stay away from the high sugar stuff and get more into more of the fats and the protein. It's going to be better. A lot of this is kind of basic stuff, but everybody is different. For here, the average 150-pound rider, they say needs between 200 and 300 calories an hour. I weigh 135. I try and consume about, on average, 70 calories an hour. I've worked for years to get to this point where my body is metabolically efficient, that's what I need. I don't need a lot. So 70 to 80 calories an hour, I figured, on like a 5-hour ride. That's what I suss it out to. And my energy is good. I get home, I'm like not crashed out on the couch, but I've spent a lot of time making sure that my body is able to burn fat versus carbs. So if you get to the point where you're in a ride and you're like, God, I just need something fast for energy, then you know that you haven't been giving your body the right food. So if you're like, God, I need some sugar or something, that Honey Stinger gel or a Honey Stinger block or something like that gives you that immediate energy, but it'll last you like 10 minutes versus teaching your body to burn the good fats and the slow burning sugars. That energy lasts a lot longer. And if you want more information on that, there's a whole book, Metabolic Efficiency Training, and it's by, I think I have it on the back. It's by, wait. There might have been one other page on here. It's by a guy named Bob Seebahar. Seebhor. And he is like the guru, nutritionist, dietitian on the whole becoming metabolically efficient, which means your body being able to burn fats for energy as an endurance athlete. And that, like, I always say my goal is to be the biggest frickin' fat burner there is. And people are like, oh my God, you can go forever. And you just don't die. And I'm like, it's nutrition and hydration and the way I train, long, slow distance. So everybody is different, and you have to kind of see how your body does with the different foods. I'm not the type of person who takes a whole Lara bar in one chunk and scarfs it down. I'll do a quarter in 1 hour, a quarter in another hour, and a quarter in another hour. So I kind of piecemeal it out over a 4-hour ride. But that's just me. Kind of a freak of nature that way. What I do find to be really important is the 2 to 3 days before. So your long rides are usually on Saturdays, right? So that Thursday and that Friday are really important in making sure that you eat well and you keep yourself well hydrated. And eating well, you know, they have all these pasta dinners right before your events, okay? And they serve up the big bowl of pasta and all of the sauce. Really? Yeah. And how many people really like that pasta dinner? Yeah, no. Yeah, so really, you know, ideally, like a handful of pasta like this with a whole bunch of sauce on it is much better for your engine to work off of than a big plate of pasta with just a little bit of sauce. So people kind of have it, it should be a sauce feed, really, with a little bit of pasta on the side. But the pasta's cheap and the sauce is expensive, so they reverse it. but those are things to think about, is like, how much pasta do you really need? I tend to do, on the Thursday before a long ride, I'll make a little bit of pasta, a whole bunch of chopped up kale, and I'll steam that the last 3 minutes in with the pasta, and then I'll make some salmon, and I'll put that in, and I'll put a little Parmesan cheese. But it's really kale with a little bit of pasta, salmon, and the Parmesan
Sounds good. Where do
cheese.
you live?
It's really good. A little salt and pepper, some red pepper flakes on there. It's terrific. But when you look at my bowl, it's a huge bowl. Most of it is the kale with just a little bit of the pasta. But I get that, and I tend toward the gluten-free. But if you'd showed up with a big pile of cookies, I would have had one cookie. I've gotten better. It would have been 3 or 4. Now it's just one. So those are things to think about. And then the morning before, or the morning of a long ride, the other morning I went for a 75-mile ride. I had steel-cut oats with a little bit of kefir in there and a little bit of flaxseed, and it got me going. So granola, a little bit of yogurt or milk or something that has a little bit of protein, a little bit of fat, and some carbs, but not all the carbs. I think there's been so much about, your body needs carbs to go, but really it needs that fat and that protein. So make sure you're getting the fat and the protein.
Do you understand why the steel-cut oats last so much longer as an energy source than the...
It's
than the
a
rolled
less
oats?
processed
Yeah,
than the
it's a-
rolled oats, so you have to
So it really makes a
digest it.
tremendous
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah, and so I make a pot of it the night before, and then,
It takes too long.
yeah.
Mm.
You boil it for a minute.
Overnight.
What's that?
Do it in a crock pot the night before.
Well, all you have to do is, boil it for a minute, and then I just let it cool off
Yeah.
on the
Let it
stove,
sit
and
on
then
the
I
stove
throw it
until
in
morning.
I throw it in the refrigerator, and then heat it back up, and throw in whatever, and it's great. So the steel-cut oats, they're really nice. I really like that. A little cinnamon in there, a little sea salt. Yeah. And then you've got cinnamon is a good anti-inflammatory. Sea salt, you're starting to do the electrolyte thing. So you've kind of primed your body for going the distance, basically.
And if you get Bob's Red Mill, it has an award-winning recipe. He went over to Scotland and made porridge and won a porridge contest
Oh,
in
really?
Scotland
Oh, really?
with his, so. you can,
Bob's Red Mill, they are good.
Next time we do this, we should make it.
You're like, and you're gonna bring the kale. And then the recovery is really important. Recovery, there are all these drinks out there that you can do, chocolate milk. Last year I ran the rock and roll marathon, and I came across the finish line, and I was done. And I could barely walk. And all I remember was this guy came up and he was like, chocolate milk, and I just grabbed it. And I thought to myself, I'm not sure that my stomach can tolerate this right now. But I just gargled.
So good, right?
Oh my God, it was delicious. It was
Better
so
than it's ever
good.
tasted in your life.
Oh, it was better than the Sprite that I had last year on a really hot day, looking at Mount St. Helens on a very long ride. But the recovery, I tend to do a quick bite of protein, something that has protein in it, whether it's a little protein bar or some meat or something that I have in my house, and then I go take a shower. So I'm like, just get some protein into my body, go take a shower, and then I'll have a good, pasta with kale and something else. I don't do bread, so I don't have a sandwich, but I'll make a big salad that has some carbs in there and protein, but a sandwich is really good. I think that the best recovery you can give your body is more the whole food recovery rather than just the drink. So as your rides get longer and longer over the 30-mile mark, you want to start taking in that recovery. And what that does is it helps your muscles, because when you use your muscles, you break down the proteins in the muscles. It helps to develop, to rebuild the muscles that you've broken down. It helps to replenish the energy stores, glycogen stores in your body, so that you're ready to go if you're going to ride or run the next day. You're like, hey, I've got energy, or you want to do housework or yard work or something. You've got the energy versus just being crashed on the couch, and especially as your rides get longer and longer. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Are there any questions? No?
You answered the questions I had.
Okay, good, good, excellent.
Actually, I do have in my plans, and I've done it before. I've got fit and lost weight by changing my diet and doing bicycling. So I'm hoping to do that again and not stay the same way. I mean,
Okay.
what you're suggesting sounds like it could work.
Yeah, so the Bob Seebahar book is an interesting book. He has an interesting blog. He used to be a vegetarian, and he's this endurance. He does 100-mile races and Ironman and half Ironman stuff. And he, in September, he decided to start eating meat and just go full-on carnivore, high-fat, just like total paleo is basically what he did. And he ended up losing 6 pounds, and he ended up, his cholesterol went down, his fitness went up, his metabolic efficiency went way up. And so I thought about that, and I was like, well, I already have a tendency towards high cholesterol, so I don't really want to do the high fat stuff. But what is it about, are we over-carbing ourselves? Is all this data archaic data, and we're just taking in way too many carbs, especially as we're doing these long distance events? So I pretty much eat a lot of salad, a lot of vegetables right now, lean protein, steel cut oats before a long event. Even the night before, I did 75 miles by myself on Saturday. The night before, I had a big salad, and I think I had salmon or chicken or something like that. And it was the morning of that I had just maybe a half a cup of cooked steel cut oats and kefir and I think that was, yeah, a little flax in there. And that was it. And I felt great on the bike ride. And I ate, I was counting my calories, and I thought, dang, that was 5 hours, nearly 5 hours on the bike. And I ate about 350 calories during that 5 hours.
Wow.
So 70 calories in an hour. And I wasn't starving afterwards. I wasn't ravenous afterwards. I ate a good recovery meal. And I was like, there is something about, I think, when you're eating those sugars and all those carbs, that your body craves more of that.
One of the problems that has happened over the last few years with everybody taking in so much sugar during the endurance events is that it's what you had referred to earlier, is that your body hasn't learned how to use its own fat sources. And so what you find is that if you start cutting some of those out, because people have gotten to the point where they're eating, you know, they're living on goos and bars and everything for hours at a time. And so when you start cutting those out of your training, you give your body a chance to actually look into itself, to actually use what's there. It's like, if you have all kinds of money in your pocket, you're not going to go to the bank to make a withdrawal. And so what we look to do is put less money in your pocket, put less carbs in your pocket, and over time really withdraw from the bank. That's how you're going to lose the weight.
Right.
But that's not going to happen unless you actually teach your body how to utilize those fat stores.
I was going to, what you said, Allison, makes sense, because last year, for years prior to this, I would consume goo like it was out of sight, right? Last year during the Tahoe thing, I got just sick after I got back.
Oh.
I had diarrhea, I had everything, and from that point, I haven't touched goo.
Yeah.
I've cut goo and out of my, I make my own bars. I got a recipe from Biking Magazine. I make my own bars, and that way I cut them up, and I know exactly how much they're good, and so I can eat those as I go. You know, I know how much I have to take
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I want real food. GU was,
Yeah.
you know, you start,
We
you
used to call it
do rely
GU.
on it. You know?
Yeah.
When you get back and you're like, I want to eat nothing, but I'm starving. Yeah.
Exactly, and so I think that that's the issue with people. People were getting all sorts of stomach issues and gastrointestinal issues, and especially runners, because what's easy? You tape some booze on you or
Yeah.
strap them on you. They're lightweight, right? Well, with a bike, it doesn't, it's, you know, what's a half a pound, you know? Take a big dump in the morning and carry that banana or that sandwich,
Yeah.
you know, and be happy
Yeah.
and well sated as you're riding without getting all sugared down, sugar loaded. And I think that that is the case. And so I'm trying to figure out more about like the Allen Lim drink. Like I said, I do water it down a little bit, but I do need to have those electrolytes. So I'm trying to find that balance of how much sugar do I need? If I don't, and I don't eat sugar on a daily basis, a little bit of dark chocolate at night, but that's about it. And so if I all of a sudden start drinking this sugary drink, is that good for me? So now I'm starting to think about the lemon and the sea salt and a little bit of honey in there.
How much lemon do you put in it?
You know, to
Taste.
taste.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, to taste. That's a hard one
Sounds
to
yummy.
dial in.
Just in
really
regular
is.
cold water? You
Yeah.
Put that in?
Yep.
And the honey?
You could
mixed
do honey and warm water. You know, just do a little bit of
in? Malt it a little bit?
yeah. And
You
then
could also get the gel flasks probably and put in just the lemon and the honey and then just squeeze out as you need to.
you could do that too. That might be a little intense.
But I'm just saying, if you
Oh,
had
if
it
you
so that
had
when
it,
you're
yeah.
out, like
When
if
you
you
reapply,
get,
you
yeah,
water
if you're
it in,
swapping
yeah.
out bottles somewhere, you can
You
kind
can
of make
just-
your own on the fly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Some people
Yeah.
have a hard time assimilating pure honey,
As well, yeah. And so there,
so you got to be careful.
you
with
got to
that.
be
Yeah.
careful with that. And so that's why I like the prunes and the dates. Like it's that's
Real food, I think, is always going to be
Yeah,
a
that's
better
Yeah.
result.
real food trumps
yeah,
anything that all
exactly.
the rest of
And that and so.
maltodextrin.
Yeah.
So the thing to start thinking about, like I said, your nutrition and hydration begins right now. You know, you're sitting here, maybe you've had dinner, maybe you haven't had dinner. Pay attention to ebbs and flows of energy in the day. Usually what happens is if you have a big carbo-loaded breakfast, about 10:30 or 11, all of a sudden your energy starts going like this. And then you have your lunch where you have a sandwich or something. And at about 2:30 or 3, your energy starts coming down. And then you have your dinner, and then you go to bed, so you don't really notice it at night. But if you cut back on the carb eating, all of a sudden you'll notice that your energy is a little bit more level. And ever since I've really done a lot of paring back of my carbs, I mean, I eat an apple a day and maybe half a grapefruit every other day. Those are my fruits. Unless I'm on the bike, then it's prunes, dates, whatever. My energy is like, I wake up, have a cup of coffee, and about 9 o'clock, I'm ready for bed. And I wake up at 6. And it's like clockwork. And so paying attention to that stuff and saying, hey, these ebbs and flows, what am I eating that's making that energy lull happen? You know, do I feel like I need sugar? Because I think that sugar, when you eat too much sugar, then you need more sugar, right? And so starting to think about your daily nutrition, not only the nutrition on the bike. It's easier on the bike. The foods that I don't normally eat, I can eat on the bike because my metabolism is just going. So I'm burning through the stuff. But on a day-to-day basis, I need to be very even keel with my energy. So I'm always working, always trying to think about what is the next best. I just ordered some stuff online over the weekend. Now I'm on Amazon Prime, and I seem to not be able to stop myself from ordering stuff. I'm like, oh Jesus, this is dangerous. But
Can I make
so
one follow-up comment? Just, most new people aren't going to be able to do a 5-hour ride on 400 calories. I mean,
No,
this is years
exactly.
and years
Exactly.
of,
No.
you know,
Yeah.
practice and metabolic
250-an-hour
efficiency
people.
that
Yeah.
has led to this. So don't think you can go out with one Larabar and be okay.
exactly.
But the point is that, you know, eventually it just shows what's possible as far as what your body can, how it can work as far as using its own stores. But don't grab one Cliff Bar and think you're good for the
Right.
day.
And
If you
bring,
go-
I always bring more
Yeah.
than I take
you
in,
need it.
because I never know, you know, am I gonna bunk?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I may bunk. So I always bring 3 or 4 bars, and I've got extra,
Yeah.
that Alan Lim stuff. I mean, I always have a ton of stuff, and it really irks me when I'm on a team ride and we're supposed to, we're team group health, we should know all of this stuff. And people are bunking left and right, and they're, you know, they're not bringing enough food, and I'm like, really? Come on, get with the plan.
What about trail mix?
That's fine.
Is that good?
Perfectly fine. Yeah, because it's nuts and raisins
There's
and
some
usually
M&Ms in
date
there.
pieces or M&Ms.
Could be
Exactly.
something to make it interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all about what
Hey,
works for
Pam,
you.
I,
It's all
the,
trial and error.
The recipe that I have, that's what I use.
Yeah.
But I mix it up with maple syrup and some other things.
Will you
That-
share your recipe with us?
Yeah.
That'd be
And
good.
and
You
there's a
sent
lot,
out
there's a
one
lot,
recipe.
there's carbs and there's protein in there.
You'll see me eating what.
Yeah, I have some.
Okay.
Yeah, and these, you know, they've been riding for years,
Yeah.
so they know, they've done it all. But yeah, everybody is different on what they take in and what their bodies can tolerate. So doing some experimenting, but always bring more than you anticipate you need. A, because you may need more. B,
Somebody
there
else
may be
might.
somebody else who
Yeah.
wants a little bit more. Yeah, and so it's always nice to be, you know, to know that, hey, I'm good here, have this bar.
Yeah.
So,
I'll have the flask of
Or
gel.
somebody's gonna go flying out
Yeah.
your back pocket and you didn't realize it. That's happened to folks.
exactly, exactly.
What would
Trader
you
Joe's
think?
is a good place to buy nuts and
Mm-hmm,
What is
Trader Joe's
Oh,
you can
no.
try because
Yeah.
it's less expensive and
yeah. And
you
it's,
get big bags of them.
exactly.
What do you think of peanut butter and honey sandwiches?
Put some banana on there, even
Oh, there you
better.
go.
Yeah.
You know, there's,
Well, and a friend of mine does, like, muffins, English muffin with an egg in there. She'll just fry up an egg and put it in there, maybe a couple leaves of spinach on the top and the bottom, and puts that in a Ziploc bag, and there's her food for part of the ride.
I heard,
We've also done-
I just read an article yesterday about peanut butter. And there's different schools on peanut butter.
Yeah.
Because especially early in the morning, because it takes a lot to digest peanut
digest
butter. So I'm giving it up in the morning before my rides now, just that I don't, but I will take some, put it on a bagel and put it in my back pocket, and then eat it sometimes on the way.
Yeah. Yeah, we've also made like brown rice balls with egg and a little bit of bacon, like chopped up in there. It's
Alan
always good
Lim
for
has
me.
a cookbook that is a really good cookbook for stuff on the go.
Mm.
If you want to eat whole foods, they have a whole bunch of recipes for bars that are rice bars and little egg muffin type things and all these different foods. And then they also have dinner. Alan Lim, Lim.
Is it just like a longer?
He's a physiatrist, I think, physiologist who works with some of the, I think he was with Radio Shack, one of the top male tour teams, yeah. And he knows his stuff. His recipes are pretty good and tasty because he wants his bike riders to actually eat the food. And so he's made up all sorts of recipes. And then I just Google up, I'll be like, homemade Larabars.
Yeah.
And somebody's got a recipe out there, and then I just tweak it to my own liking. So that's why I got the Cuisinart, because just mix it all in there.
And some people have been known to just have leftovers in a bag
Yeah.
Yep.
If it was
Pizza.
You have no idea how
Yeah.
good a piece of
If it
grilled
was
chicken
okay
can
for,
taste
if
sometimes.
it was okay for
and
dinner
oh my.
last night.
It'll be better on the ride.
Drumsticks.
Oh, wow.
Long day, it can taste really
can
nice,
taste
really good.
Well, so last year I did a huge ride. I did a 192-mile Randonneur ride with, I don't know, 11,000 feet of elevation gain in one day. And we came there at mile 145, they had a secret mystery stop. And so I come around this corner and I'm about to descend and I see the tent and I'm like, oh, thank God. And I pull up to the tent and the guy was like, what would you like to drink? And I said, what do you have? And he said, ice cold Sprite. And I said, bring it on. And that Sprite, and I don't drink soda. I mean, the last time I had soda, well, the last time was that day I had a half a can of Coke that tasted great. But this Sprite, I just like in 4 sips, it was gone.
Yeah.
And it tasted so good. And it was what my body needed. And I've done, the reason why I've done some work on my own nutrition and hydration is because I did a 50-mile mountain bike race. I've done it the past 2 years. And the first year that I did it, at mile 25, I started to cramp in my legs. And the last 25 miles, at one point or another, one muscle or another in each of my legs would cramp up, and I'd be riding going, go away, go away, go away. And so my goal was to really figure out nutrition and hydration for these endurance events so that I wouldn't cramp. So last year I did the same ride, and I cramped at mile like 45, so it was much better in there, and I knew exactly what I did. And it was a nutrition and hydration. A little bit of a too hard of an effort at one point, but it wasn't as I had done the year before. So it really does take the trial and error, the bonk where you're like, oh my God, I couldn't go any further, to realize that, oh wait, I didn't really eat dinner last night, and I wasn't really good about hydrating myself even though I had a good breakfast, so kind of think about those things and learn from mistakes that you make. Make sense? Mm-hmm. All right, so the bike fit, I copied off just a basic cyclist field fit so that you could read through this, and with a partner you can kind of gauge on whether or not your bike is fairly appropriately fit or not for you. What we do, and what I need to talk to Dave about, is organizing a day or times where people can come in. And what we've done in the past is we've done a free, just a half-hour basic bike fit, where we look at the saddle height and the fore aft and the bar height. And it's just to get you basically comfortable within what we have to work with. We don't change out cleats, we don't do any of that stuff. If you want the full-on, a couple of the people that we've done this stuff on, we've said, you really need to just schedule a bike fit, because there's so much going on in order to make this bike actually work for you, that it will be more worth your time and effort to just get in and have the bike fit. But for, I'd say, about 75 to 80% of the people that we've done, that little half hour of coming in and having things sussed out, they've been really happy with it. And a lot of times saddles need to go up or down a little bit, or forward or backward a little bit. And there's no huge change. But if you're noticing as the rides are getting longer that you're having some knee pain and you can't read through this and kind of figure out what's going on, or you're having some back pain or neck pain, you really, with cycling, you might get a little bit of tightness, but you shouldn't have any pains. Your feet shouldn't be going numb. Your bike should fit you. You shouldn't be getting sores, saddle sores and that stuff. Hands shouldn't be going numb. Occasionally, if I ride stupidly, they kind of go, if I'm riding lazily and I'm like this, I might get a little bit of numbness or a little bit of tightness. I've got some nerve tension issues that I'm dealing with, so occasionally I'll get a little bit of numbness and I just kind of shake things out and go, okay, now relax, and it goes away. But I know that it's issues not related to my bike fit. I know that it's issues related to my neck and my first rib that are causing that as I'm in this position. It's a good fit otherwise. But if these are things that you just can't seem to shake out and adjust through, then by all means contact a bike fitter. Of course, I'll recommend myself or Peter. Probably Peter is more readily available. He's not here right now. He's a mystery man back there, but he does excellent bike fits. There are 5 points of contact with your bike: your hands, your feet, and your saddle. And so those are the most important parts that you have to have good contact with. So as you're getting, how many people have the clipless pedals? Does everyone have the clipless pedals?
Almost everybody.
Almost everyone.
Okay.
There's the one.
They're not on your bike yet. So when you get them on, you may find that, oh, this isn't quite right. So you may want to come in for a little, yeah, or you may just want to get your bike fit if you're relatively new to cycling. Where'd you get your bike at?
My brother picked it up at a.
Okay, yeah, so you probably want to get it fit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So I would say, for you, I would just go ahead, get your shoes, your cleats, throw them on there, see how it feels, and then if you're like, oh gosh, there's something really wrong with this, get it fit before you start putting miles in and start injuring yourself.
And I would strongly suggest coming here. Every bike shop will do a bike fit, and you see some really scary things come out of that. And
Thank you.
it's true.
Coming from a guy who worked in the bike shop for a while, I can attest to
no,
that.
no, and you know, these guys are athletes. They know what they're doing.
Those are the bike people, these are the body people.
The bike, yeah, they know how to fix the bikes, fit the bikes. So there are numerous things, especially with a bike that's like, hey, my brother just got this, and here I am, I'm going to ride 200 miles. You're doing STP or America's?
STP.
Yeah, STPs.
I've had it for a while and I had it fit at a bike shop.
Okay.
Um,
So if you notice any hot spots when you put on the pedals, make sure you get it fit, because there's all sorts of things with
yeah, I
pedals.
knew nothing about
It's new. Yeah.
And short advice for folks who might be looking to get a new bike?
So what we do here, if you have a bike and you're like, I'm not sure that this is the right bike for me, I'm not sure it's the right size, I don't really know what size bike I'm looking for, then I would talk to Peter and you can get a basic fit on that big black and red machine, which dials in, it takes 3 measurements, and it dials in a bike frame size for you. And that's the most important thing. From there, once you know what size frame you need, then you can go ride to your heart's desire bikes and say, I need a 56. What do you have? Okay, we've got a Trek, we've got a Specialized, we've got blah, blah, blah. Here's my price range, blah, 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 blah. And you go ride those. What feels the best for you? Okay, what seems to move the best? Because within a certain price range, within like $1,000 to $1,500, there are so many differences in how the frame is constructed. One frame might be a little bit better with a little bit worse parts. Another frame might not be as nice a frame, but it has better parts. How does your body like that? So you need to sort of pick and choose a price range, and I think that for beginner riders, somewhere between the $1,000 to $1,500 is you're going to get a good bike, and a bike that not only will you be able to do STP or America's Most Beautiful Ride on, but that you're going to say, hey, I want to do another ride. You know, I want to keep on riding because I enjoyed the riding. So that's, I recommend doing that for the measurement for the size of the bike. And then we sell some bikes here. We have a limited supply of, we have an unlimited supply of bikes. We just don't have them on hand. But we sell LaPierre, Redline, Torker, Masa, Soma. There are all these
And there's
bikes.
lots of used bikes.
And there are lots of used bikes.
That was gonna be my next question. Any advice as far as buying a used bike, as far as?
I think that Second Ascent and Recycled Cycles are probably the best place to go.
Or you don't.
Yeah.
Craigslist has
With-
bikes that are often stolen too.
Yeah,
right? So-
Craigslist it can be a little bit shoddy. eBay, you're dealing with shipping charges and who knows what it's going to look like when you get there. So, you know, I would say Recycled Cycles, Second Ascent, and then far third would be going to Craigslist or eBay. But while you might be able to get a good deal on Craigslist or eBay, is it really worth it if you can't, you know, you buy a bike from Recycled Cycles, you go ride it, and you're like, hey, this isn't quite working the way you told me it was going to work. And they probably have some sort of a 30-day, you know, bring it back and we'll fix whatever within 30 days. You know, I think that they're both Recycled Cycles and Second Ascent are fairly reasonable in that respect. Yeah.
There are also a lot of people with 4 or 5 bicycles in their garage.
I have 8.
I just sold my.
You have 8
my
of your
bike,
own?
but-
Yeah, I have 8. Yeah.
Well, I've got 8 kayaks, so I guess.
Another point with the sizing, not all the companies have the exact same sizing.
Yeah.
I know like Felts run a little smaller, Fuji's run a little bigger, so if you have a size, like you've got fitted here, that's
It
not
may not
necessarily
be
the
the-
size you need to be on.
And they all measure them slightly differently too.
Exactly.
So it would be within, you know, if it said, oh, you need a 56 top tube, then it may be a 55 in one and it may be a 57 in another.
But it wouldn't be a 51.
But it wouldn't be a 51 and it wouldn't be a 61.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
you know, you're narrowing it down, but that's a good point. They all measure things.
It's
you
pretty
know.
easy to put you on the bike and look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a genius to say, I don't think so.
Right.
But I think that in terms of gear, you know, having a good bike that fits you and that works well. Cycling shoes. I was just in Guatemala for a couple weeks, and my first week there was a mountain biking trip. And there were 7 of us on the trip, and we broke it up into, there were 2 groups. There were those who had cycling shoes and clipless pedals, and there were those who had their tennis shoes. And it really, I mean, there was a huge difference in ability between those of us who had the clipless pedals on mountain bikes and those who didn't. And there are some fabulous downhill mountain bikers. These were not fabulous downhill mountain bikers. These were people who, I'm not sure that they read the trip skill level and fitness level. I was like, how did you end up here? You know, one guy was from Russia, and he was convinced that what he really needed was the full exoskeleton and a downhill bike, and he would have been able to do it. And we were like, dude, we just climbed 3,000 feet today. I don't think you'd be able to do that on that bike. And so, bike, shoes, good shoes that fit you, cycling specific shoes, the pedals, cycling shorts. Spend money on cycling shorts and making sure you have a good saddle that fits you, because you spend a lot of time and about 70% of your weight is on that saddle, and people think that the bigger the saddle the better, and that's not correct. The saddle needs to fit your sits bones and the little rails of your ischium right here, rather than be this cush thing. If you're on a big cushy saddle, it's like sitting on a Swiss ball. You don't have a stable surface on which your legs are working as pistons. So having a good, more of a flatter saddle gives you a nice firm base from which your pelvis is nice and stable, your spine is nice and stable, and your hips can move and your legs can go and act as good pistons for power for going forward.
And the cushy ones will put marks on you.
Yeah, exactly,
in the long
exactly,
term.
and give you chafing as well. And chafing is evil, and it's usually the saddle that's not right or the bike fit that's not right. Some people have a little leg length discrepancy, and that can cause chafing because you're always lower on one side, so you're getting this imbalance. And I like to cycle without gloves on during the summer. Part of that is vanity, I suppose. But part of it is that then I feel myself when I have too much pressure on the bars. So then I make myself the fit is such that I don't have a lot of pressure on my bars. And if you are straight elbowing like this with a lot of pressure on your hands, then if you hit something, you're gonna go like this and go over. And if you're nice and soft with your hands and you hit something, you're gonna roll over it. So I prefer no winter. It's a little hard to.
And our triathlon coach was just saying, even just a pair of like gardening gloves, so that if you fall, then you've got some protection on your hands, but there's no padding or anything, so you still have the ability to feel stuff. And they're usually cool too because they're vented on one side. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yep. Home Depot gloves.
Mm-hmm.
They have some gardening gloves that are actually
Like
pretty good
$7
cycling.
or something like
Yeah,
that, yeah.
yeah,
The
and they're
blue
pretty
Exactly
good.
what he said. Mhm.
Yep.
They come in pink.
Yes, they, yes,
Just in case you wonder.
I don't have them. Mine are blue.
And if you have neck pain, a lot of people have neck pain and they've got the visors on their helmets, take that sucker off. Because when that visor is on and the helmet is sitting correctly, then you have to look up higher to get your eyes above the visor.
Yep.
Okay, so take that visor off. Or I had one patient who said, well, I don't have a visor, but I wear a cap. And I was like, get the cap off. You know,
Put it on
Sunglasses.
backwards.
yeah, and sunglasses are another thing. If your glasses, like you have glasses that sit here. So if I have sunglasses that only sit this high, even if they're here, they're sitting right here. Then as I'm riding, I'm going to have to look more like this than if they're sitting here and they go up higher. So riding specific glasses are better. Big honking, movie star glasses. Those are great because they cover. They're not very aerodynamic.
Like Lyle glasses.
There you go.
Like the ones that come around the side.
Yep. But you can spend, oodles and oodles amount of money on bike gear and whatnot. And I'd say the important things are the shoes, the helmet, and the chamois. Those are like the padding. Yeah, yeah. And so it's like I tell my patients, spend money on pillows and shoes. You're in your shoes all day and you sleep on your pillows.
It's a really good piece of advice.
Medium weight down pillows. Yes, pillows.
I know. Pretty attached to them. I've got mellow holes.
Well,
Medium weight down. Because you can scrunch it and make a nest for your head in any position. See? Thought it was all about bike fits, but medium weight down pillows.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.